The Diablo 4 Campfire live stream is now over. Season 2 patch notes are now live on news.blizzard.com. We're going to cover these patch notes on this video, but we're going to do things a little differently. We are not going to do a deep dive into all the changes and all the specifics identified in the patch notes. We're actually going to take a very macro look at everything that was discussed during the campfire. And what I really want to talk about is the impact and changes that it's going to have on Diablo 4 moving forward. I hope you'll stick around and join me. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, we have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get right into it, but I do want to explain one thing. The reason why I don't want to do a deep dive, this would turn the video into like a 1-hour video, and plus there's a million other content creators that are going to do that and go line by line. For me, I rather focus on the macro, not the micro, although both are important. But we're going to go over the 5 main themes in this campfire chat. If you didn't have an opportunity to watch it, this is a very condensed version. It'll save you an hour and 15 minutes. That's how long the campfire was. It was not 2 hours. It was an hour and 15 minutes. But this will be a good summary. So what are going to be the themes of this video and what did they talk about? They focused on a 5-point strategy today. The first being updating the elemental resistances, and we knew this was coming. They wanted to make uniques exciting and impactful. They wanted to make class improvements to address all the concerns they've heard from the player base. And they wanted to update the damage buckets. And this is the discussion around vulnerability, crit damage, and overpower being utilized by everyone and nothing else. So they want to update the damage buckets, and they spoke about it today. And they wanted their changes to not be a detriment, but to be a bonus to us. And they also discussed that. And they also discussed patch 1.21, which is not dropping on October 17th, but will be dropping. They didn't give a date, but will be dropping after season 1, so October 17th, but before BlizzCon. So I'm going to also share with you what they discussed on that topic. Elemental resistances. So basically what they spoke about today, and again, guys, this is high level. If you want the minutia, go on the Blizzard News patch notes, and it describes this stuff in detail. But basically, elemental resistances, used to have an inverse multiplicative. Okay, so as you see here, 20 plus 20 equals 36, and that's because when you got to the higher amount, it actually, you didn't gain as much of a resistance as you should have. Okay, and they go into an explanation here. Okay, and armor reduces both elemental and physical damage taken. This is how season 1, this is currently how the game is. And the changes that they're doing is now elemental resistances are going to be additive. Okay, so you have 20% poison resistance, you gain 20% more, you now have 40% poison resistance. Okay, resistance is now going to have a base cap of 70%. It can go to 85 with new effects that increase the cap. Okay, armor now only resists physical damage. Used to do both. Rings, amulets will have all resistance. We're going to go a little bit into that later. And how to get specific resistances via gear, Paragon, skill tree. Okay, so they talked about that. So the overall impact, resistances will matter more. Does it sound like some other games we know about? I'll leave it at that. Okay, and resistances are now going to be more complicated. We're going to have to put puzzles together. Okay, how do we maximize our resistance? How can we increase it? You know, again, I sense little hints of other games that adopt this kind of methodology when it comes to resistances. I'm currently playing one right now, if you know what I mean. So their goals for elemental resistances was players should be able to hit the 70 cap at level 80. Okay. They didn't want players to fall behind if you weren't able to max out your gear, or you completely forgot about grabbing gear that has resistances. So there's going to be resistances in rings, amulets. Okay. And it's going to be all resistances. And that's the fail safe that they put in the game to ensure everybody can, keep up. And there's many paths that we as players can itemize the resistances in our gear, rings, and amulets, etc. So gear, paragon, elixirs are going to finally be worth something. And they use the example of the elixir of poison resistance. It's actually going to serve a purpose and boost our resistances depending on which elixir you need. And as they stated, it's a great way to shore up your resistance deficiencies for a specific fight. So again, little itemizations that we need to watch out for, fine tune dependent on what we're doing. Uniques. They updated uniques. They basically went and redid all the uniques in the game because they heard loud and clear that uniques aren't exciting. Like, they heard it from everybody that we would go out, do nightmare dungeons over and over, hell tides, whatever, and you weren't even picking up gear because you knew there was nothing to it. It wasn't going to help you advance. Everything was rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So they literally updated every single unique in the game. And they did things now that are more, again, you're going to hear me use this word a lot, itemization. So here are changes, examples of changes on the screen right now. So the new stats on unique, whereas before lucky hit was up to a 5% chance to heal 780 self life. Now lucky hit up to 10% chance to gain 28.5% damage for 4 seconds. Okay. They're just making it more, to not use a better word, but it's more unique. There's more itemization in the uniques. It's not a generic catch-all, right? And they provided some examples. I'm not going to go all over them. Also, they outlined what uniques and uber uniques, depending on the boss, and it'll get exposed here on the slide that I'm showing you guys, but it's showing all the different fights and what you can target farm. So Grigor, as you can see, these are all the items that will drop in Grigor. These are all the drops in Varsha. These are all the drops in Lord Zir. And Duriel, these are all the uniques that will drop that you can target farm. And of course, Duriel is the only place where, let me rephrase that. Duriel is the only place that you're increasing your odds of Uber uniques dropping. Uber uniques can drop anywhere in the overworld. But if you want to maximize your chance of getting an Uber unique, Duriel has higher odds. It's the only place that has the highest odd for an Uber unique to drop. And I want to triple say this because I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. Those Uber uniques, the Doombringer, the Grandfather, Melted Heart, all those, okay? The 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 7 that are listed there, okay? They can drop anywhere in the overworld. It's very low outside of Duriel, and it's higher to drop in Duriel, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Class adjustments. And this is a big topic, so I'm going to cover it from a very high level. They basically said in the Campfire today that they know it was obvious certain classes were outperforming others, okay? And that wasn't their intent. That's not how they see Diablo 4 being played. They want every class to be viable. So they did class adjustments, and they said that the majority of the changes are buffs and that they are particularly important about moving forward. And the reason why, another reason why they wanted to align the classes is because they know leaderboards are coming in season 3. So it's critical that they properly align the classes. Now, without getting in too much detail, like they went into all the class adjustments, and I'm going to hover all over these adjustments. So they went into every single class and they talked about all the basic skill buffs and the passives and all that kind of stuff. Again, go to the patch notes. Everything is in there in detail. I do not want to add 30 minutes to this video going on about it. But basically, there's 3 situations that the dev team for Diablo 4 is looking at when it comes to classes, okay? And that's number 1, some builds and playstyles that have dramatically outperformed others. So when they see an outlier on a class that's just killing it and is outperforming all the other classes, they're going to address that. Okay, they're going to look at it, keep an eye on it, and do what they can. And the number 2, the other thing that adjustment wise they're going to do and keep an eye out on is fixing unintended interactions that result in extreme outliers. So someone is able to put a build together with the unintended impact from the dev team, and they are now, one-shotting, Lilith kind of thing, right? So number 2, that's the other thing they're going to keep an eye out and make adjustments accordingly if they see that. And number 3 is if they see there's designs that have the potential for infinite power scaling. So in other words, when they're designing the skills and the classes in Diablo 4, if they see that there's potential for infinite power scaling, they're not going to let that happen. Okay, so those are their 3 focuses when it comes to class adjustments. And again, go to the class note. Go to the patch notes, and every single detail of all the classes is there and all the buffs. Long story short, when it comes to class adjustments, we all know, the top classes are the rogue and the druid, and those are the ones that are overpowering all the other classes, okay? So they want to see all 5 classes be viable, and none of this, more of this. They also went out of their way to say, when they say this, they don't mean that these classes that are here are getting nerfed. It's more about bringing these classes here. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Damage buckets. Okay, so they spoke about damage buckets, and they spoke about how it's currently being done today. So for example, Season of the Malignant, crit damage and vulnerable were different buckets. So they spoke about damage buckets, the current way it is, and what it's going to look like in season 2. And right now in the Season of Malignant, crit damage and vulnerable damage are different buckets. And mixing buckets gave multiplicative damage bonuses for the entire amount. So it was the full amount of crit, the full amount of vulnerable, and it's stacked, right? But in Season of Blood, crit damage, vulnerable, and overpower are different buckets now. Mixing buckets give multiplicative damage bonuses, but capped per bucket. Okay. And here are the numbers. They're also going to fix how overpower damage is calculated. Okay. In other words, overpower is going to be much lower. Better now. Okay. This is how it's going to work in season 2. All right. Season of Blood. Crit damage, vulnerable, and overpower. Different buckets. Mixing buckets will give multiplicative damage bonuses, but capped per bucket. Extra bonus damage to these categories are additive. Okay. So as you see here, okay, the old way, you would have 150% crit, 200% vulnerable, and you would add them, right? Now they're taking 50% of the crit damage, 20% of the vulnerable damage, which becomes 80. All right. And that's 15, 20. You're like, what? 15, 20, 70? No, but then you're multiplying them. And there's a factor that you're multiplying it by, and that gives you the 80. So it is different on how it's being calculated. And therefore, the damage buckets are going to be different, making vulnerable, crit, and overpower not the all to end all kind of thing. Okay. Well, I would imagine that's their hope. We'll only find out when season 2 launches. So what's the implication to this new update on damage buckets for season 2? Here's a graphical representation on how things are today. And you see crit and vulnerable builds underlined with the green line way above the purple other builds line. Okay, so crit and vulnerable builds are up here, and all the other builds are down here when it comes to damage, right? We all know that. We've all lived it. Okay, and this is how it is today. Okay, but the overall impact, nominal damage numbers will go down. Mixing damage type is less required, and individual damage types are more equal in value, resulting in this, okay? Where the other builds and the crit and vulnerable builds are now better aligned, okay? So people don't have to rely on crit vulnerable so much. And that's because of the updates that I just illustrated a minute ago that's going to happen in season 2. Now, you notice it says their monster power. They haven't updated the monster power in season 2. However, this is their next phase of addressing the damage bucket issue in the game, not just with the classes, but with the monster power. So they're also looking at that, and they're going to address that in the future. And of course, that impacts our damage because we're the ones interacting and trying to kill them. But I just wanted to highlight they spoke about monster power and that it is something they're focused on and going to address. So other goals of their damage bucket update for season 2 is they want players to be rewarded for investing in their primary vector of damage. For example, the Blood Necromancer's investment in overpower damage, and to then find other vectors of damage scaling as they customize their character. They do not want the game to only be simpler with this change, only removing the synergy and giving nothing back. They want to make it a bonus. So damage bucket changes in a vacuum could be a negative experience. And Adam addressed this. He's like, wait, you're lower. I know how you guys can perceive this as, wait, you're lowering my damage and making it less rewarding to try to build crit vuln. I hate this, right? So he addressed what instinctively all of us reacted the same way when they did the illustration of the crit and vulnerable coming down, but it's more of all the other builds coming up. So he's addressed this question by saying, tuning monsters to be appropriate with the new player power level, total player power differences should be minimal. likely more powerful due to the unique upgrades and other changes. And they went into specifics, and I'm just going to highlight one. And they wanted to give effects for scaling back, but with player interaction instead of baseline. The goals with these changes are twofold. They wanted to add some multiplicative player power back in a more interesting way. Itemization. We want the itemization experience, particularly in the latter portions of the game, to be more interesting. And they went into some legendary nodes on the Paragon board, which allowed us to triple dip into our damages. Again, I'm not going to go into the weeds. You can go into the patch notes and see all this stuff, but it's very clear to me, actually, in every topic that they addressed today, but more so on when it comes to damage and class balancing, they're adding more layers for us to unpeel and customize vis-a-vis itemization. So I saw a lot of W's when they were talking about this, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. So again, a little bit more is they're delivering, they said that they're delivering on their previous stated goal, that they're adding Paragon glyphs to every class so we could have various legendary effects to scale. So they're adding 2 new Paragon glyphs per class. And they also mentioned that they plan to do more of this kind of design in the future. And they highlighted several glyphs, rare glyphs, on the Campfire. And lastly, before I get into my commentary, so don't go away, make sure you watch the end of this video. I'm going to give you my overall feedback of the Campfire and what I think it means for Diablo 4 in the future. So please stick around and watch the end. I also want to mention they spoke about patch 1.21. Okay. Today's patch is 1.20, and we're like, why are they talking about 1.21? Well, they brought it up and just wanted to mention a couple of things regarding patch 1.21. It will be coming after October 17th, so after season 2 drops and before BlizzCon. So they didn't give us an exact date. All they said was it's going to be after season 2, but before BlizzCon. But what really perked my ears was what is coming in 1.21, and they only said a couple of things. One of them was this: we are now going to get a training dummy, guys, ladies and gents. We're getting a training dummy so we can test our builds on these dummies. And as you can see here illustrated graphically, it's going to be in Kovashev. It's going to be in some underground cellar. It looks like it's going to be called the training grounds. But as you can see here, there's going to be a normal training dummy, an elite training dummy, a boss training dummy, single and multiple training dummies. Okay, so it looks like you can test your current build's damage output on these 5 categories. So really good. And I'm going to highlight something to this kind of topic, which I wish they would take this idea and expand it and build on it, but we'll discuss that at the end of the video. The other thing regarding patch 1.21, resetting the Paragon board, they confirmed today, they're going to simplify that process. One can only take that as it's going to be a one-click reset of the Paragon board. Now, they didn't get into the details and how that process works. All they said is we're going to be able to reset the Paragon board, and it's going to be much easier to do so. All right, so my take on today's Campfire chat. I think it was a W. I think it was a step in the right direction. And you know what? Let's just put aside they should have done this when the game was launched. Finally, they're making all the fixes that should have been in the game in day one, yada, 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 right? All the naysayers, all the things. And I don't disagree with those comments. However, you cannot deny that these are huge steps in the right direction. We can debate when they should have done it, how they should have done it, and all those topics. But at the end of the day, this game has taken two big steps forward with the October 4th live stream and the October 10th Campfire changes. Those two streams has incorporated a tremendous amount of changes to the game. It's taken a big step forward, and no one can deny that. We can argue, like I said, the semantics of when, how, shoulda, woulda, coulda, should have done it then, like, why did they really, all that stuff, right? It's all in my comments on my Diablo 4 video. But at the end of the day, these are big wins. We can argue about the details, and this is right, this is wrong, they should have been. Granted, we'll always do that. It's human nature for gamers. However, this game is going in the right direction. You can hate me for saying that. You can bombard my comments in this video with "you're wrong" and this. I'm sorry. This game is going in the right direction, and I think today was a big win. And you want to know why it's going in the right direction? Because they're doing things, they're doing things that should have been in the game day one, absolutely. But they're doing things that players appreciate about a game and enjoy the game when they have these features, okay? They're getting more and more closer to allowing us to customize our builds, okay? Now, do we still have end game issues? Absolutely. Is the game not going to have a lot of end game content and keep us invigorated to play 6, 8, 9, 10 hours every night? Probably not. But it's definitely gotten a lot better. There are a lot of people that were on the fence that are not on the fence anymore after these two streams. And that says a lot, because this game was at the rock bottom of the you couldn't even see the bottom, okay? Whatever the lowest point on Earth is, they were below that, all right? So they've made two huge steps. And yeah, I can hear it already. Wow, Sammy, you're praising patch notes as new features in the game. I hear you guys. I hear you. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. The game was what it was on launch day. So you can sit here and criticize me and tell me this should have all been in the game day one. I agree with you, but it wasn't. All I care about is that this game is moving forward, and it's moving forward enough to get my interest and play it. And it has. I'm really looking forward to season 2. And I can't wait to try out all the different changes. Being able to customize my character. Is it giving me 100% customizable features? No. But it's giving me more than what I had in season 1, which is a huge step in the right direction. Do they need to increase that? Absolutely. Do they need to add more end game content? Absolutely. However, I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. If Blizzard continues to take these same amount of steps forward like they did between season 1 and season 2, think about it, guys. Think about what season 1 is like right now, and think about what season 2 looks like it's going to be, okay? In my eyes, the jump was big. And if they continue that level of jumping every season, this game's going to be a lot better, and at the end state that we need it to be, a lot quicker. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I'm sorry I didn't get into the minutia of the patch notes, but there's 100 other people that are going to create hour-long videos deep diving into every sentence of those patch notes. And I'm more about the macro, not the micro, although both are important. I want to talk about the viability of this game, what's happening, the future, all that kind of stuff. Of course, I'm going to talk about the minutia as well, but I felt talking about this was going to be more important. And I did give you a very high level overview of what they discussed today. So let me know your comments. Was it an L for you? Was it a W for you? You don't care? What is it? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope to see you next time.